Welcome to Geopod, where we examine current events and take a look at the world around us through the lens of geospatial analysis. My name is Andrew Patterson. I'm an educator here at Coppell High School. We've got a good panel around the table today. Who else have we got?
I'm Sai.
I'm Jia.
I'm Bilal.
And I'm Nihar.
So today we decided that we're going to take a different approach to this podcast and discuss something that we're all pretty passionate about. We're all involved in the education system, and we all have our different opinions on how well it works and what different things we can do to improve it. So today, each one of us is going to give our opinions on certain aspects of the education system, taking a look at it through our specific school and then Texas and maybe worldwide. And we're going to look at different instances where there could be improvement. So Patterson, you want to start us off? What are the flaws that you specifically see in our school?
So starting from what we know here at our school, which is local, we zoom out and we go to a large scale looking at education in general. We're at two different perspectives. So on the one hand, we've got free, essentially, of course it's tax funded, but we're seeing education provided for students in grades 1 through 12. And so we're giving them information and knowledge that they would not have had before potentially. On the other hand, we are training learners to think in a certain format. And we talk about creating critical thinkers and thinking outside the box in the educational system, but are we really just training to go do certain jobs? Honestly, where we are here at Coppell High School, I see both. I see in our system where we are trying to break outside of the box, we are leveraging technology to think beyond what we traditionally would in a four-wall classroom. We're applying real-world strategies. Like you think about the engineering department where they're building their solar cars and they're going out to corporations and they're having to lobby for their own funds. Like that's real-world application. And that to me feels like we're trying to get outside of the four walls of a classroom. But at the same time, I think that we still have textbooks that we're using, which are a good base of knowledge, but it's like how much are we really getting outside of the textbook? And even in my classroom, we learn a lot of what's in that textbook. And there's not a lot of research. There's not a lot of diving in to see where are we really getting this information in this textbook from. For example, a lot of people know about geography. Professor Rubenstein, he is one of the premier authorities on human geography. And, I'd love to have a conversation with him to discuss with he and his team why are they making decisions based on the information they're presenting to us in our textbooks. Because in my opinion, I feel like a lot of leveraging is done on which way they choose to go with what they're presenting with us. And I can get more specific into that later. But, is education set up to train us to do certain things, or is it set up to get us to think critically on our own?
Patterson, you said three words that I think are the most important thing: outside the box. That learning has been drawn on to us since the elementary school. I know in the Coppell school system, there's a system called GT, or Gifted and Talented, which is what they claim that they take students of a special way of thinking, a different way of thinking, and put them in certain classrooms. And this system started all the way back in elementary school. You took a test and to see whether you are gifted and talented. And through this, in elementary school, they called it challenge for us, but you would do activities that were outside the box. You would look at, maybe learning numbers in a specific way, not just learning the multiplication tables, but maybe, trying to take a different perspective by designing a project based on it. And that really worked in elementary school. But as you said before, when you get to high school, especially in our school, it is very textbook based. But I think that the textbook system, it will remain if this education system stays in place because it is textbook based. You're sitting in a U.S. history classroom and you have every day a daily assignment of reading, and then you have a quiz over it the next day. The way the education system is set up and the way that the tests are based, it is knowledge-based. For the most part, there are some exceptions. Certain science classes may be more application-based, but because the whole system is based on the fact that you're taking in knowledge from reading and then you have to directly throw it up on a piece of paper, I don't think this textbook system is ever going to change, which is pretty unfortunate. Any thoughts, Nihar?
Well, to be honest, I think the type of class is what determines whether it should be textbook-based or not. I know you mentioned history. We do have textbook reading daily, and we do have quizzes every day, but when it comes to the test, you see a lot of analysis questions, and it teaches you to apply what you learned in the textbook to a certain problem. And take AP Physics. I know we don't use the textbook a lot in that class, but learning the concepts teaches you how to think a different way, especially mathematically.
I think that's especially true also for in the context of economics. I know that in my econ class, we read the textbook almost every single night. But then in class, instead of going over what we learned in the textbook, we use those theories and concepts we learned in the textbook and apply them to things that are happening like in the real world right now. And I think that's because, once again, like Nihar said, it's based on the subject. Because economics is something that's always been and always will be something that's closely related to what's happening right now in the status quo. And so unlike something that's like math or history where you use the textbook for like practice problems or you use it to learn, things like economics that you use in the real world and you can easily see the connections between the two, I think are kind of the things that where you use textbooks to learn it, but you use those concepts you learn to apply to the real world.
Also, I'd like to mention that, agreeing with the previous points, having a good flexibility on how you want to approach a problem and what you do to learn the information needed to solve the problem is a really good indicator of our level of education in different schools throughout the country. Like AP Psychology, for example, you learn the materials from the textbook, and during the test, as Nihar and Jia have said, you use the information you've learned to apply the concepts to real-world problems throughout the test. And furthermore, classes that enable projects that inspire you to be creative or use the concepts you've learned to complete those projects are involved with classes that are associated with good education policies.
I think the biggest flaw that I see when I look at the education system is there's no emphasis on why we're learning certain things. You know, you look at what we have to take in classes. They say, here are the prerequisites to graduate. You need to take history courses, certain history courses. You need to take Algebra 2, Geometry, and another math course. It used to be pre-calculus, but apparently they're changing that. And you have to take different sciences. You have to take biology, you have to take chemistry, you have to take physics. And when you look at what classes people are taking, and you see that they're taking 6 AP classes in a 7-period system, or even 7 AP classes, and you ask them what courses they care about, and they only have interest in a few of the courses. Why are they doing the rest of the courses? Based on their GPA. And you're sitting in these classes and you're wondering, why am I learning this? If you take a physics problem that's about an object sitting on a train that's moving in a certain direction and there's a string attached to it and the object is sliding down, and you're thinking to yourself, when will this ever happen in real life where I will need to calculate this? Of course, the principal concepts you need to understand possibly for the future, but there is not enough emphasis in the school of, why am I learning this? Why do I need to know that force is equal to mass times acceleration? Why do I need to know that DNA is double-stranded? The teachers especially don't have a reason, or if they do, they don't share it with their students, of what exactly is the purpose behind what I'm learning. I know that there is a program in our school, IB, that does focus on, the why we're learning about it. Jia, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So the IB program is focused on, instead of just focusing on kind of what we learn here in the American education system, there's a whole separate curriculum that IB students have to take and requirements that IB students have to meet. And this isn't just on a scale in like America. This is a global program that students from all over the world are participating in. And I think what this allows for is a more holistic view of how different subjects interact with each other. Because in like English, we learn about different things from all over the world and how like not just specifically American literature and how we look at that and we analyze that. We even have a class called Theory of Knowledge where we specifically learn about how we know what we know, why we know what we know, and how we come to that conclusion, and the reliability and the credibility of that knowledge. So I think that the IB program does do a lot of different things for students because it allows them to see a bigger picture than just focusing on like one specific area like statistics or physics.
But I think even the IB system, it's great that the fact that they want to focus on why we're learning specific things, but then they also have prerequisites. You need to take this course, you need to take this course, you need to take this course. Patterson, do you have any thoughts about what we've discussed so far?
Absolutely. And Bilal, I think you hit the nail on the head. When we take a step back, are we really asking the question why in our educational system? And that has been my passion that I've realized over the last few years with AP Human Geography. It came to fruition when Texas passed House Bill 5, where it specifically stated they were not going to require incoming freshman students to take geography. Basically, they could skip geography and they could take other social studies classes, but I think that they were pushing in favor of more science, engineering, technology, and math, which is a good thing. I mean, we need to know those subjects, absolutely. But specifically with geography, a lot of people think it's memorizing states and countries and locations and maps, and that's really cartography, and that is part of what we do in geography, but really it's talking about why. It's how are we connected? Why are we connected? Why do we choose to focus on certain parameters of our civilization as opposed to others? And when we don't get that opportunity to discuss those things critically in education, then we miss out that training as we're growing the next people who are going to run our country. And what I see when I take a step back is we've got some phenomenally brilliant people in this country who are outstanding at science, technology, engineering, and math. But I'm seeing more and more of our population not asking why. And it also depends on the geography educator. Like, there's few people, and it's not necessarily even by their design. There's few educators that are able to get the time, because we're overloaded as educators, to take a step back, to think critically about the material they're presenting. So many teachers are so busy and overloaded that they're strictly just trying to get the material to the kids in the best format they can. We have got to get to a place where we can let educators and train them the right way to teach kids how to ask why. Why are we learning about the interconnectedness of our societies? Why are we learning about science, technology, engineering, and math? Why do we need to know that force equals mass times acceleration? These things are important, and I feel like more and more we're training learners to memorize information, not necessarily in this school. I think this school is a place that stands out from a lot of different schools, and that's why I'm here. I really do believe that we are getting outside the box. But I think we need to think critically about the whole educational system, because I see us just memorizing and being prepared for jobs instead of thinking critically about our entire system.
You know, Patterson, I think you have a great point. There comes a point where you've got to ask yourself why. And this topic we have right now, education system, is a very big topic. There's multiple perspectives and there's multiple facets that we've got to look at and that we're all passionate about analyzing. This is only going to be part one of a two-part series where next time we're going to discuss more about the flaws in the education system, but more importantly, how we can fix it on a local and global scale. Thank you so much for listening to this Geopod episode. Until next time. I'm Bhargav, student.